Welcome to the Tim Lowery Podcast, where we talk about all things politics, local issues, real estate, business, and how it affects our community. Today, we are joined by Sheriff Anthony Lowery. Sheriff, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Tim, it's great to be here. I appreciate you having me.
Oh, absolutely. So I want to get into it first. Who is Sheriff Lowery? What do you want the public to know about you?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say, I've lived here in Baldwin County all my life. So, I've been here almost 53 years, and I've enjoyed growing up in Baldwin County, obviously seeing the things that have changed over those years. I have a wonderful family. I have a wife that this year we will have been married 30 years, so she's put up with a lot.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah, we have 2 adult children, and we also have a brand new daughter-in-law as of October of last year. So really, really proud of my family and proud of their accomplishments. We're one of those unique families. We're all Auburn grads, so we're all tough people, right now, thick-skinned with what's going on. But yeah, so I'm proud of that, and I'm proud to be the sheriff of Baldwin County. It's a true honor to be able to represent this county in such a great organization as the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office.
Awesome. Give us an insight on what the Sheriff's Office does and what you're responsible for.
So, a lot of times, Tim, you hear the Sheriff's Department, kind of like you hear the Foley Police Department or something. Well, we're not actually a department. The Office of Sheriff is a constitutional office, and so we're not a department of any agency. We actually only answer to the governor and to the people, obviously. And so we're responsible for the process of the court. We handle all the subpoenas, anything that the court issues, we handle that. We also are responsible for maintaining the county jail, which is a tremendous responsibility. Obviously, when it comes to liability, it might be the biggest liability the county has is managing that facility. And then, obviously, we're a full-service law enforcement agency. We do anything from misdemeanor, traffic, crimes, all the way up to capital murders and everything in between, investigation-wise.
Wow. And speaking of the jail, the corrections facility, you guys just recently opened a new.
We did. We began construction on that thing actually in 2022, and but it was really more of a 6-year project. And so essentially we added what we call Tower B, and it should get us to the capacity of around 850 inmates.
Wow.
Which we're not at now. There were times before our construction we did hit 700, so we do know that there's going to be a need to grow that. And but it's kind of like Baldwin County, Tim. We knew we needed to grow the numbers, but we also had to build the infrastructure, right? We had to build a bigger kitchen. We had to build a bigger laundry. And also, a thing that was important to me are the employees that work in that environment. So I wanted to make sure we had stuff in there for them. So they have a gym and they have their own locker rooms and they have all the break rooms now that they weren't afforded before. So it's been a tremendous change for us. Just imagine just our docket and intake alone. They went from what was used to be about 500 square feet to 14,000 square feet.
Wow.
So you can imagine what a much better place that is to work.
I can imagine. Yeah. How many people do you have on staff at the Sheriff's Department? And then also how many people are dedicated just to the corrections facility?
So we have about 480 employees budgeted with the Sheriff's Office. And you have about 140 of those that are corrections officers or assigned to the jail. We also have law enforcement officers that are APOS certified, just like the patrol officers you see on the street that work inside the jail. We have a full criminal investigative division inside the jail because, like you see, we have assaults, we have destruction of county equipment, any type of damage. We have drugs that get into the jail or cell phones or any of those things. The stuff that you see on TV is real, those are things that we have to actively investigate and work against.
Gotcha. Now, working in the corrections facility, are there ways you keep the morale up and different things in those kind of environments?
Well, let me tell you about this. The people that work in, the men and women that work in our corrections facility, I've never seen a group that celebrated the successes of their peers and their coworkers and their friends like they do. When someone gets promoted or it's someone's birthday or someone's anniversary, they literally go all out to celebrate those things. And then what people don't realize, they do a lot of community outreach. They have their own outreach committee with the different people chair that, but they participate in parades. They actually do an event in Bay Minette in the park up there for kids. So they have a lot of community outreach, even though you would think traditionally they're confined to the four walls of a jail.
Gotcha. That's good insight. Let's kind of transition into immigration.
Mm-hmm.
How has the immigration and the policies brought on with the recent administration changed?
Well, I can tell you it's a 180-degree change. It's dramatic. You know, I was appointed sheriff September the 1st of 2024, and I had already had planned a trip to the border, McAllen, Texas. So in late September of 24, I, along with several other sheriffs and elected officials, went to McAllen, Texas, and we went to the border. Now, while I'll say the morale was high there was no doubt that the border crossings were at an unmatched level at that time, and there was simply no opposition to it. And I learned a lot. I learned that how well the cartel is armed. I learned how well they have the things that we have as far as drones and all the other equipment that you would think, well, only the United States would have that. So that was in September of 2024. Obviously, when President Trump took over in 25, I, along with 27 of us total sheriffs, went to D.C. and we met with Tom Homan. And Tom Homan promised us three things. That one, he would shut down the border, and I can tell you with 100% that he has done a tremendous job of doing that. Secondly, he was going to open up county jails, and not just county jails in Alabama, but throughout the United States, where they could begin holding ICE detainees, because before that was something that just wasn't done. And thirdly, there's a program that people commonly refer to as a 287G program. And it's where your officers, you could send them to a class, but the class was about 6 weeks long, and you would be able to enforce immigration law. Under the Biden administration, it really wasn't necessary because there was no immigration enforcement, right? But under the Trump administration, obviously that was his priority right off the bat, and it's something that we got involved with. And now we have about 15 deputies that are 287G certified, and our jail now takes ICE detainees.
Oh, wow.
One thing, the president changed the immigration laws were that he had to have an inmate before a judge within 72 hours if they were being an ICE detainee. Now we're holding them a week. We moved that to a week. So you should see each week probably 50 to 70 people coming in and out of our jail that are being detained in our jail and then ultimately taken down into Louisiana. But the impact's been tremendous. So
now, how important is it for local sheriff's departments or municipalities to cooperate with the feds and ICE?
Well, so when this first started, and it's evolved a lot, Tim, I'll tell you it's evolved a tremendous amount. When it first started, we had all agencies, FBI, DEA, HIDA, HSI, all of those groups were working immigration, which was needed. Obviously, we had gone so many years with no border restrictions, and so it was very necessary. Unfortunately, what that did pass some of those responsibilities down to the local sheriffs. So things that FBI was normally working, things DEA would normally work, things that HSI was really important stuff, the child pornography and those things that we really work hard. They were all working immigration instead of working those responsibilities like they once were. So that did put a lot of pressure on us. And luckily, as we've progressed now and we're now, 14 months further into this than we were, it's changed. It's evolved. That now we're really able to focus in on the real bad actors, the guys that are selling guns and drugs and trafficking in young boys and girls, and targeting those people first. And then obviously, secondly, going after people that are here unlawfully and have been ordered to leave the United States.
Gotcha. So with Baldwin County, when you look at it, we've had a much different reaction than a lot of the other parts of the country, like Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. What do you think it is that's kept us safer during these, more cooperative during these?
Well, I talk about this a lot, and I mean this with full sincerity. You know, the police, whether it's the local police department or the sheriff's office, they're only as strong as their community. And I think when you look at what's going on up in Minneapolis, and you see the lack of support for law enforcement by that community, by the mayor, by the governor, when you see that, you can't have these officers enforcing the law. But we don't have that here in Baldwin County. Our community standard's way above that, and I don't think you would ever see Baldwin County citizens being willing to accept what's going on there. And I think that's what separates us, and I'm proud to say that's what separates us.
Absolutely. I agree. Let's shift gears a little bit. How long have you been with the Sheriff's Department? Let's start. How long have you been with law enforcement and then the Sheriff's Department?
Yeah, so I had a unique way into law enforcement. I graduated from Auburn University, as I told you earlier, and I had a degree in environmental sciences. And I actually wanted to go to work for the sheriff's office, and Jimmy Johnson was the sheriff then. He was a great sheriff, and times weren't like they are now. A vacancy in the sheriff's office was a rare thing to have.
Wow.
And so he actually helped me get on a job with David Whetstone, who was the district attorney at the time, long-serving district attorney of Baldwin County, who had an environmental division. And his main interest was to prevent pollution into Mobile Bay and Perdido Bay, particularly by municipalities. And so he hired me, and ultimately I went through the police academy, SWAPA, in Bay Minette, as a deputy. And I ended up working for Mr. Whetstone for 10 years. And I worked a lot of environmental crimes, but obviously you had to work other investigations too. And you began working bigger cases, and we had a lot of high-profile murder cases that actually investigated. And during that time, became good friends with Hoss Mack. He was the chief investigator with the sheriff's office, and I was the chief investigator with the district attorney's office. And so when he was elected in 2006 and became sheriff in 2007, he asked me to come to work for him then. And so I was able to go to work for him. I ran the civil affairs division of the sheriff's office, one of those things I talked about, which is a constitutional responsibility of the sheriff. And that's where, I had investigators under me at the district attorney's office, but that was the first time that I had, more than around 15 or 20 people that worked under my command. And then ultimately in 2013, I had the opportunity to attend the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia. And it's a tremendous honor. It's one of those things where less than 1% of your law enforcement have the opportunity to attend.
Nice.
And so when I graduated from the FBI Academy, there was some realignment, and I was appointed assistant chief deputy over law enforcement operations for the sheriff's office. And so I actually did that job for 5 years, and I will tell you it was a wonderful, wonderful job. I talked about it today when we gave our awards ceremony, what a special time that was for me. And then ultimately in 2018, the chief deputy then, Charlie Jones, retired, and I was appointed chief deputy by Sheriff Mack. And that's really where I learned the business of the sheriff's office. And I think that's what some people sometimes, Tim, don't understand is the sheriff's office is really big business. Our budget this year is $58.8 million.
Wow.
And the sheriff is responsible for it. It's not a board that tells you how to spend that money. That's your responsibility, is ascertain the needs of your community and your agency and spend that money appropriately. So you have to be physically responsible. And I'll tell you, I was chief deputy for 6 years. I wish I'd have been chief deputy for 10 years because there was just so much to learn. And of course, I talked about my wife. We own a small business in Alberta, a pharmacy, a family-owned business, and I was able to also apply that to my knowledge, and that really made it where I could come into the sheriff's office day one and do the things that I needed to do to keep Baldwin County moving forward. Now, I'll say this, I don't take nearly all the credit for that because I have a tremendous command staff, and most of that command staff was there under Sheriff Mack as well. The only person that changed was I went to sheriff, and I hired a guy that used to be from Foley. David White's my chief deputy. David worked 23 years with the Foley Police Department, all the way from patrolman to assistant chief, and then ultimately he was an interim chief for a while. And David had left and gone to work for the district attorney as their chief investigator. And so I was able to backfill my spot, really my position as chief deputy, with somebody with tremendous police administrative experience, which is something that's so valuable in an organization our size.
Huge, yeah. A lot of great experiences there, training.
Yeah.
Any other training or education?
Obviously, you know, the FBI door, that opened doors for me. I was also able to attend leads, which about one person from the state gets to go to each year.
Wow.
So I went to the 83rd session of leads, and it's essentially a 2-week course. You go for a week, and then a couple months goes by, and you fly back, and you go back for another week. And there's about 50 people total in that class. Unlike the FBI National Academy, they have 4 sessions a year of about 250 people. But like the National Academy, we had people from all over the world there too. You know, when I went to the National Academy, we had people represented 30 other countries that were in our class. So it was a tremendous opportunity to learn leadership, and not just leadership from people in your own state, but how people do it throughout the world. And, you know, it really is a life-changing experience for a law enforcement officer.
That's awesome. Now, when you're working with cities and municipalities, how does the Sheriff's Department work with, and collaborate with those local police departments?
So we do really well with, you know, we work really well with our partner agencies, both the municipalities and our federal partners. You know, I meet with our chiefs of police every other month, and we all go into a room and we talk about our issues, and most of our issues are common, right? They're having the same problems that we're having, but we discuss everything from crime trends to personnel issues, to technology, to all the things. And we usually try to bring somebody in to speak to us, you know, somebody from Alta Point, or somebody from DHR, or somebody from 911 or the district attorney's office, you know, to have somewhat of a program that we can all be a part of. But one thing about it, you know, all of these chiefs of police I've worked with at different times, and most of them I actually worked cases with them when I was with the district attorney's office. So we have a really close relationship, and we work well together, and we look out for each other.
Nice. What's some of the biggest challenges in public safety in Baldwin County right now?
Well, drugs are always going to be the biggest challenge. I mean, that's, you know, we have theft and we have those type crimes, but most of those, Tim, are driven by drugs, frankly. You know, people are trying to make money to buy drugs, and so that'll always be an issue. You know that obviously the fentanyl issue has been tremendous over the past few years, but I'm proud to say, you know, we partnered with the coroner's office. A few years ago, the coroner came into our office and we talked to him and explained we've got to do something to start combating these overdoses. And so he actually went to the county commission along with the sheriff's office, and we asked for additional funding for a program that we promised them that we would try, but we could not promise them that it would work. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to have the ability to do a swab on a decedent and send that swab to a place in Arizona and get a result back within 3 days. It was taking us about 7 or 8 months to get a result back from Alabama Department of Forensic Sciences. And if you think about investigating a crime and you can't really get started for 7 months, you know, you're so far behind the curve there, you may never catch up. So the county commission back then in 2020, they were great to us. They gave us, I think, $20,000 to do this testing. And again, we told them we may never make an arrest off of this. It's something we want to try. Well, as it turns out, we're able to make a lot of arrests. You know, we actually now have 4 convictions under our belts for manslaughter for people that intentionally sold drugs, particularly fentanyl, and people overdosed as a result of that. Now we actually own that machine. The coroner's office owns that machine. So we've taken that 3 days down to 3 hours.
Wow, that's awesome.
And it's made a tremendous decrease actually in the number of overdose deaths that we've had. The impact is undescribable. I'm really excited about that. I feel like that's something where we took a chance and it really worked.
Awesome. What a huge impact.
Yeah,
That's great.
Absolutely. You know, so we have 4 prosecuted for manslaughter. We have 4 outstanding that are still charged with manslaughter. And I'll tell you, we have some active investigations right now related to overdose deaths.
Hope you're enjoying the Tim Lowery podcast so far. We talk about all things small business, real estate, politics, local and national issues that affect you most. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and be sure to drop a comment below. I read and reply to each and every one. Now let's get back to it. What technologies are you guys looking at implementing into the Sheriff's Department that's going to help with similar things like that?
Well, so that's a Randox machine, and obviously that's great for working death. But I'll tell you where we've progressed the most is with our digital forensics. We are light years ahead of where we are. Obviously, people know the story of the child that was taken from Orange Beach and ended up in Mexico. But I'll without getting into the details, I can tell you that the investigators in our sheriff's office were able to identify where that child, how she had traveled through the United States and where she actually was in Mexico, so we could alert the Mexican authorities and U.S. authorities so they could get her. And that was done out of our facility in Robertsdale. And so I will tell you that the digital forensics, it's a very expensive proposition. We really started it as part of to help with homicide investigations and major drug investigations, but it's blossomed into so many other things. You know, I get a lot of questions about why do you have so many child porn arrests in Baldwin County? Well, I'll just tell you, in my opinion, Tim, it's because I think we've gotten so much better at investigating it proactively. We used to be totally responsive. We would get a complaint, we would respond to the complaint. But now our investigators have become so educated and well-versed on how to transverse the dark web themselves. So now we can actively hunt these predators that are in Baldwin County or are coming into Baldwin County. And I think that's why you've seen that increase. And I think, as you'll see, as I move forward as sheriff, we're only going to grow that unit, and because it's so valuable to the safety of the people of Baldwin County.
Absolutely, and it's great to be proactive versus reacting to the problem.
Anytime you can do that. You know, that's the same thing with drugs. You know, typically that was always a reactive type investigation, but we try to be extremely proactive now. And, you know, people ask me all the time, you know, you see a lot of those black Tahoes running blue lights. Well, that's a very intentional thing. You know, the sheriff's office, we don't really write a lot of tickets. We do stop a lot of cars, and a lot of that has related them. They're all traffic violations or warrants or whatever they may be, but we want to make sure that people aren't doing the nefarious things in these neighborhoods in the middle of the night while people are sleeping.
That's great. That's awesome. You're going into the election cycle.
Yes.
You're running against an opponent. What differentiates you, and why are you more qualified, experienced, better fit for the voters? Well,
you know, there's several, and you know, I don't have anything bad to say about my opponent. I'll just say the things about me. You know, I do have that 4-year degree. I do have the FBI National Academy, and I have, you know, 15 years of police administrative experience, and I guess maybe 20 years. Time flies, you know, and you just can't replace that type of experience. That of 20 years of making those decisions based on your gut, based on law, based on your experience with someone who has never done that job, you know, and that's it. You know, I'm the only one that's worked inside the sheriff's office. I'm the only one that's worked inside that jail, gone inside there and seen and spent time with those men and women. And, you know, it's not just me, Tim. You know, I talked about a little bit about my command staff. You know, you would be bringing in a completely new command staff that is unaware of how this $58.8 million business runs. And it would be tremendous. So, and again, I think that people would agree that the sheriff's office is headed in such a great direction right now. Where, you know, we have a lot of accomplishments. We have a lot of new programs that I'm really proud of. Senator Britt, we were finally able to get the money for the boat that we've been looking for. So you'll see our coastal division grow. You'll see our ag unit grow, and obviously we're going to continue to do the things that we talked about with technology.
Awesome. Is there anything that we haven't gone through that you want to highlight?
Well, I just want to, I was lucky to work under Sheriff Mack. Obviously, he was a great sheriff, and he moved on to do some things where he could help other sheriffs in the state of Alabama. And, it was just one of those things that there's no replacing that experience. Certainly you can have a perspective, an idea of what a job is until you actually have been there and done that. It's just not the same. And I'm really proud of the men and women of the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office. I talked about my education and my training. Well, we made a commitment. We were going to keep our officers trained, our deputies trained the same way. So when you look at the number of people that work for us now that are also FBI National Academy graduates, or they're command college graduates, or they're FBI trilogy graduates, which are all very prestigious things. And that's the men and the women that work under my command now. And so we'll continue growing leaders. And I think that's what every good organization should be able to grow its own leaders and continue to get that organization and keep it moving forward.
Well said. What do you want to say directly to the voters of Baldwin County?
Just that, one, I'm very honored to be your sheriff. It's something that I take great pride in, but I take it very seriously too. It's a weight that wears on you every time that something happens, but I wanted them to know that I'm the most qualified candidate. I've actually been there. I've actually done these things. I've handled these investigations. I've handled this administration, and I've been a good steward of their money. And I've tried to do the things that I thought would benefit, the citizens of Baldwin County. We're going to continue to grow, Tim. This county is going to continue to get more populated. That's just a natural thing. And whether you're for that or you're not, doesn't matter. It's going to happen. So we have to prepare for those things. And I'm excited, with the men and women that we have and the potential that we have to really make Baldwin County or continue to make it one of the best places to live in the country. That's why people are coming here, because the schools are safe. That's always been a passion of mine. That's something that we started here in Baldwin County with the Sheriff's Office, the School Resource Program. And the neighborhoods are safe, and that's what people want. And, frankly, that's what they deserve.
Yeah, it's definitely a clear difference from other areas in the country and even cities right nearby us. But yeah. I want to take the time to thank you for coming on today. Thank you for your service. Thank you for stepping up to get into this public service role as well. And we can't send enough kudos to the Baldwin County Sheriff's Department and you guys over there. So thank you so much for everything.
Well, I appreciate that. But I'll tell you, I'll just end with this, Tim. I talked about it today too when I addressed the sheriff's office as a whole. It's not this patch that we wear that makes us different. It's the people wearing that patch, and that's why the Baldwin County Sheriff's Office is where it is.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on today.
All right. Thank you.